forth from Saudi Arabia to
Right.
to Pakistan and had been radicalized, now we say, before she came here. But let me just ask you this. We passed a bill this week. That bill may be a first step, but that does not solve all the problems, correct?
That's correct.
And we talk about some of these other countries, but a country like Belgium does not really do a very good job at providing the type of information that we would expect in order to be sure that the people who are getting visa-free travel. So somebody in a place like Molenbeek, they can basically, even under this bill, they're still going to be able, if they have a passport, to come to the United States. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Barisi, senior DHS officials told the Government Accountability Office in April of 2013 that the Department had not reported overstay rates because it did not have sufficient confidence in the quality of the overstay data, and so they said that they couldn't reliably report overstay estimates in accordance with the statute. The GAO went on to link the lack of confidence in overstay data to current biographical data system and lack of a biometric system to verify the identities of alien travelers. Why did DHS officials tell the GAO that it did not have confidence in the biographic system in 2013?
During that time, we were still working to connect some systems, some biographic systems, to exchange data between agencies within DHS. And one of the issues, once you are enhancing your systems, you can't kind of go back and see the data that you can't unfix what was in the past. So we have worked the last several years to improve those data exchanges and make sure that data is flowing in order to be able to develop accurate numbers moving forward.
So you have confidence in it now, unlike Secretary Napolitano did not have confidence. You think now, standing here today, that the system is good and trustworthy?
We have certainly increased confidence since that time, absolutely.
Okay, but that may not be sufficient. Let me ask you, Ms. Kephart, to comment on that specifically. If a terrorist is able to come through the visa waiver program, supposed to be here 90 days, but in point of fact, if they come here and they need a 6-month time period in order to orchestrate and conduct an attack, is there really a significant risk that to them that they are going to be removed from this country on the 91st day?
Not unless they come across criminal law enforcement and there's some connection to a terrorist watch list. No.
Exactly. Let me ask Mr. Jenkins and Ms. Barisi, is DHS currently, let me ask Ms. Barisi this first one, is DHS currently monitoring individuals who have recently traveled to countries such as Syria and Iraq where radicalization and training efforts are obviously readily apparent?
So if there was continuous travel that had a nexus to the United States, we would certainly have that information. If there's not a nexus to the United States and, say, one of our VWP countries are aware of that travel, they are absolutely reporting foreign fighter information to us. That's one of the benefits of the VWP program. In cases if it's unknown to the VWP country, unknown to the United States, there's no nexus, that is a potential that we would be unaware of that travel. That's why when individuals travel to the United States, we also do have algorithms running in the background for the checks that we do conduct to do our best to match up what we might term as like broken travel, because it doesn't have that nexus.
Let me ask Mr. Good, one of the statements in your report was from a woman who said ISIS wouldn't be here if there wasn't Islamophobia. Do you believe that statement is true? In other words, would you subscribe the motivation for the World Trade Center bombing in '93 to a reaction against Islamophobia?
No, and
What about the Khobar Towers in '96? No, correct?
No, but what I would say—
9/11 attacks?
I'm sorry?
The 9/11 attacks?
No.
Right. So these people have an ideology independent of anything, our policies or what we do. I mean, do you agree with that?
I certainly do, but I would say that simply because they have their own motivations and they certainly don't need an excuse to attack us, and again, I'm not trying to rationalize any decision to do so, but I think our own ignorance about what does motivate them in some way and what does alienate populations, particularly in Europe. They have a much more serious problem with this in Europe than we do here in the United States. But this, if we create a system where, or we create a situation in which Muslims feel like they need to be separated from society, that makes it much more easy and makes them, some of them, much more susceptible to the kinds of sophisticated recruiting techniques that ISIS employs. And we should be making it harder for them, not easier.
Well, what strikes me is that some of the people who have been very successful terrorists have been educated, middle, higher income people that actually had a lot of opportunities. And so, I'm not saying that we don't need to be, sensitive to the broader populace, but I think that it is not something that is being done and necessarily in reaction to our policies. And you talked about managing the risk of terrorism rather than eliminating the risk of terrorism, and you cited the refugee. You acknowledge, though, that there is risk with the refugee program, given the FBI director's statements that they cannot vet all the people that are coming.
Well, of course there's risk, and that's why they established the most rigorous
But
screening system.
But it's a screening system that, as Mr. Jenkins points out, some of the people who've come and have committed terrorist acts have come through the refugee program. And so I think the question is what's your tolerance for risk? I think most Americans, if they think that there's a chance, even if you're 99% accurate out of 10,000 people that you're bringing over here, you're talking about 100 people that you'd be bringing into the country that would potentially do harm. So I think how you deal with the risk, I think that your testimony suggests you would have more tolerance, and I think most Americans would be. I'm out of time. Let me recognize Mr. Lynch for 5 minutes.